Welcome back to the MotMot Morning Podcast. My name is JC. I'm joined by Henry March. Today we have a very special guest. We're going to be having a conversation interviewing Professor Barnes. Professor Barnes has been a mentor to many students and is a marketing professor at Seattle U for 15 plus years. He was also a vice president and news director for KOMO TV. So we're going to get his insight, his wisdom, play some fun trivia games. So grab your favorite mug and let's dive into today's episode.
Before we dive into the podcast, let's briefly talk about the importance of what MotMot Coffee does. MotMot Coffee is the one and only student-run business here on campus. We are a non-profit coffee bean company that utilizes direct trade and ethically sources from Nicaraguan farmers to maximize profits, provide a better quality of life, more access to education, and improved healthcare. With a purchase from our website or a cup of coffee from the bottom line, you can join us on our mission of helping the Nicaraguan farmers.
So without further ado, let's introduce Professor Barnes.
Let's do it.
So we kind of just want to start off. How's your day going today?
My day's going great. Good to see you guys.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So let's kind of start from the very beginning, yo. So
How did I end up here?
Yeah.
I had a very interesting career progression. And I think it all comes down to sharing with students what are your transferable skills and follow your dreams. I was a junior in high school and I was listening to, I didn't know what I wanted to be. I was listening to this radio announcer one time and I thought, that guy's awful. I could do better than that. So I went to my local radio station, asked for a job. I'm 16 years old. No way. I said, great, I'll work for free. You're hired. 6 months later, I said, now can you pay me? Because I'm working before school, after school, weekends. Sure. Yeah, we'll pay you this little amount. Great. I had my first job. I was playing music and reading news. About a year later, I graduated to a larger local radio station. Now, by this time, I'm just graduating as a senior, going to community college, working hard, but working at a radio station. So I'm working full-time, going to school full-time, and did that. Took a tour back in New York when I was 18 with, at that time, one of the competitors to Associated Press, United Press International. They had a national radio network. And I said, after the tour, I said, can I have a job? Yeah, we'd love for somebody to run around New York and gather audio for us.
Right.
I'm 18 years old. I had never been to New York.
Right.
Great. Until I figured out how much it cost to live in New York, and I'm getting paid pennies. But I did that for a year, and then came back to the West Coast, was able to get a job at a radio station for 2 years, parlay that into TV behind the scenes. I loved being editor and producer. And I eventually ran television newsrooms around the country, Detroit, LA, San Francisco, Buffalo. And during that time also created a media consulting firm and consulted with about 50 television stations nationwide.
Wow.
I finished up here. I eventually sold it, finished up here running the KOMO TV newsroom, and then wanted to leave news. I felt local news had become flash and trash, plus sports and weather. That was it. And so I became, and this is where the transferable skills come in, I became Director of Strategic Communications at Washington State University, trying to really raise the profile of the university on this side of the mountain, and then became Vice President of Marketing at Pacific Science Center, which was great. It gave me nonprofit experience.
Right.
And then was recruited to be, yes, I was a Girl Scout, Chief Marketing and Development Officer for Girl Scouts of Western Washington.
Right.
Again, great experience. So I'm crossing a lot of different industries. During that time, I started being an adjunct and absolutely fell in love with teaching. And as we're recording this now, it's my either 6th or 7th year full-time. I started here about 15 years ago as an adjunct. And this is the best job I've ever had in my life. I humbly say I was called by an Amazon recruiter shortly before COVID. And I stopped him and I said, look, I don't care if you offer me $1 million a year. This is the best job I've ever had in my life. And so I hope that care and enthusiasm, comes across to students.
Right. Which it definitely does. I mean, 100%. Since the very first start of our classroom, I think there's something about like the careness that you have with each other and with the students, and the kind of the connection that you want to bring towards the students as well.
Right. My hope is that, during the time I'm able to both challenge but mentor,
Yes.
and, help in any way I can. You'll frequently see me sitting in the lobby of the Piggott building because I want to be available for both current and former students.
Right.
For me, I can say I care, but I have to demonstrate that I care.
Right.
I feel like you kind of learn everything you need to know on the first day. I mean, if I hear a student that's going to take your course, I'm like, show up on time the first day, maybe 10 minutes before. Because, I mean, every first day there's, like, 1 or 2 students come in late, you make a scene, and then they don't show up late
in
again.
BUAD 1000, I'm a bit of a stickler, but I'm trying to help them, be successful not only at school but in business.
Right.
There was a notable time when, as a business leader, I showed up for the meeting 5 seconds late. The general manager locked the door. He was making a big deal about, no, you're not late. You be on time.
Right.
And so I'm trying to help students understand, I don't want you to face the awkward moment that I faced one day.
Right. One of the big takeaways or kind of things I liked about the class is when students kind of talk quietly, you would tell them, yell fire. Where did that originate from? And
Well, I think that, there's so many times in businesses, with casual conversations or presentations, and students now have to learn how to use that voice.
right.
And so, if some students come in and they're fairly timid and, raise your hand, and I'm trying to say, no, you have to learn how to use the power of your voice. One day you're going to be trying to sell an idea. You may have 30 minutes. You may only have 15 seconds.
Right.
And so the more you practice using that voice and projecting it so that own the room, when you're talking.
Yeah.
Going back to the broadcasting a little bit, you were in college, at community college throughout that time, kind of? So back then,
In the early years.
back then, would there have been a broadcasting major? Or, like, what did you say?
Oh, yeah.
There was?
Yeah, there would have been a broadcasting major, but I didn't do it. After I completed community college, I went for a year at St. John's in Fordham in New York, and I was studying a variety types of communications, everything from oral communications to what stroke victims go through. Came back to California and then got a degree in communications and then eventually a master's in speech. So, I just feel that both written and oral communications are so important to the success. As I said before, anybody can have the best idea in the world, but if you can't communicate it, that's not going to take you very far. And so that's how I went through school.
Back to the broadcast and how you said that he wasn't the greatest. That kind of competitiveness, was that something you kind of grew up as you came along, or is that something just kind of sparked up right then and there?
It just sparked up. At the same time, I decided to also be a public address announcer for the high school football games. But again, I began realizing that if I want to do this, I have to take. Here's a funny one. I have to use every opportunity to use my voice. I would show up for high school basketball games doing practice play-by-play. I'm not broadcasting to anybody, but I thought it's one more opportunity for me to practice using my voice, quick situations, just trying to get better at it.
Right. And to add to that, from my experience, that comes with a lot of discipline as well, being able to do that a lot of the time and improve on it. What's kind of your advice to people out there listening? What's one tip advice for discipline or kind of seeking for that motivation?
I think you have to really think about it as a passion and a dream. If you really want to do it, follow it and take advantage of every opportunity, no matter what that dream is, no matter what that passion is. If it's starting a business, my advice is, and this may go against all the norms, start it and tweak as you go. Don't spend a year trying to create a business plan. The business plan is great, but get into it, learn, tweak, follow it. talk to people, listen to people, get advice, but just do it.
Right.
Yeah. I feel like a lot at the start, there's not going to be many rewards. So you really just got to not only love it, but have fun with it.
Yeah. If it's your passion and you love it. And, that love may shift as you go through your journey in life. But do what you love right now. I think it's the best advice I can give any student. Follow your heart. If I frequently tell a student, look, if you're majoring in, please, all the professors don't listen to this. If you're majoring in accounting and after you graduate, you don't like being an accountant, you still have a great dream. You're good with finance. You're good with numbers. You have a great talent. Go where you want to go. Do you want to go work at a nonprofit? Do you want to go work at a business that is really committed to sustainability and climate change? Take those skills. Do you want to go with a startup and work at a startup? Follow your heart.
Yeah. So let's talk about being like one of the better professors, especially for me, one of my great mentors.
Thank you. You're kind.
What's something you wish students kind of understood about you?
I hope that they really believe that I care. I hope that when I give them great feedback and they don't get the top grade, that I'm trying to, it's not just a graded assignment. I'm trying to help them learn and take that learning on to something in the future. I think it's so difficult for students today. They think about grades. I have to get this GPA. I have to get this certain grade. And when I look back, it should be about learning. What did I learn in the course? If you get a B, but you learned a lot, you should be very proud. Don't feel like you didn't reach your goal because you didn't get an A. Don't be so focused on the grades. Focus on what you're learning.
Yeah. So one thing I've seen for the first time this quarter is a closed grade book. I believe like 3 out of my 4 classes are actually a closed grade book. Is that not like something you might do?
No, I want students to see where they're doing along the way. Absolutely.
And is there a reason for that? What's kind of like the reason behind that for you?
I just think students want to know.
Right.
Yeah.
They absolutely want to know, how am I doing in the course?
Right.
How's my grade? I think the difficulty sometimes happens when students come to me saying, oh, to keep the scholarship, I have to have this certain grade.
Yeah.
You have to earn it. I can't.
Right.
Because you have so much riding on it, I can't manipulate the grade for you. How about some more tough questions?
Let's go.
These have been the easy ones.
Let's go back to the KOMO TV.
Yeah.
Was there
I'll tell you a story about when I quit.
Yeah.
When I quit, I was getting paid an obscene amount of money. I called into the newsroom one morning and I said, "What's our lead story?" And the student said, not student, 21, 22 said, "Oh, it's great. We got 3 people dead on I-90. We've got the uncovered bodies. There's even a baby and there's blood all over the road." I drove to the side of I-90 and I had a conversation with myself. I said, "Joe, you have been in denial for many years. You have to come to grips with it's now trash, weather, and sports. Because if it bleeds, it leads." And I drove in and gave 2 weeks' notice. No job, family, bills. I came to the realization it violated my values and my ethics, and I just quit.
Is that something that you've kind of been holding on throughout your journey at KOMO TV, or is that just right then and there? It just kind of...
It just hit right then and there.
Right.
Yeah. I had been trying to make sure that we were covering the right kind of stories that were relevant and informational, but I saw a lot of overall local news changing. And, for people who are still in local news, I applaud you. It's difficult. But I can tell you today as a viewer, and you know this, if you turn on local news, it's depressing.
Yeah.
Unless there's a snowstorm that you want to know about.
Yeah.
Or a big sports event. Seahawks are doing great. Other than that, you almost need a bucket of Prozac to watch local news.
Yeah. For my sake, be honest, I don't remember the last time I watched local news.
Maybe,
I
like-
think I'm more on Instagram or on
Yeah.
TikTok or on YouTube.
Most people get their news now from social media.
Right. Do you think that shift is going to deteriorate or kind of take away local TV, or is that just kind of...
I think local news will still be here, but I don't think the kind of content will change any longer. I think it'll still be, rapes, robberies, murders, car chases, fires, that sort of thing. And I think, cable trying to be 24 hours and feed the beast ends up with a lot of speculation from guests. So sometimes that doesn't fit well. And I think so many people in today are just following the news organizations, both on cable and social media, that fit the news they want. On a national scale, it's challenging then because it's just reinforcing people's perceptions. If you're a Trump fan, you're going to watch all the news that relates to supporting Trump, and it reinforces. If you're not, you're watching, what you hope are objective sources. For me, I've come to read, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, and the Guardian, probably, my main news sources.
At KOMO, did you feel that there was some push towards a certain political party with the type of content you guys put out?
No, but I can tell you that current ownership, I want to say this diplomatically, current ownership owns many stations across the country, Sinclair. And let's just say that their political beliefs, which sometimes has influenced the news with some things, with stories that come nationally, they have to run, or at one point in time they had anchors read certain things. It's on the right side, not far right, but right side.
Kind of going back to that kind of motive of what TV is all about, or local news, kind of might be similar to the question you just asked, but working in the industry, was that something they pursued a lot of the time? Because I see a lot of I don't know, like Instagram or TikTok, they want views, so that consists of clickbaits or kind of stuff that people want to see or that's interesting. So is that something they pursued working there, or is that just something that you're unaware of? Or
It's challenging for local news because you've got limited staffing has been cut, so most of the stations have limited crews. They're trying to cover what they believe they should cover. And I'll tell you a funny story. When I was there, I think that it's so easy for newsrooms to get, you get this viewer research and all of that. You really need to listen to the real customer.
Right.
And so when I was there early on, I felt the people in the newsroom were well-intentioned but out of touch with the real viewer. And so I started collecting complaint emails, kind of like people coming into the restaurant that didn't have a good time.
Yeah.
And I finally said, look, I'm going to invite some of these people to come in and watch the 5 o'clock news and then critique it to you after. Well, you had thought, some of these people thought, I cut off their legs and shot their dog. And the first response was, what do they know? I said, they're the customers.
Yeah.
And these people they'd come all the way down from Bellingham or up from Olympia just for the opportunity to watch the news, have sandwiches, sodas, and the people would come in, like begrudgingly, and I loved it. It would be conversations like, I didn't get the story. Why did you do that story? It's real things that you can't get from written research. And it was just so priceless. And it taught me a lot about, any business. Bring your customers in and listen to them.
Going back to your greatest lesson, what has been your greatest lesson throughout your journey, or at KOMO TV, or just throughout your whole life?
I think two things. Listen to the customer and be the customer, no matter what your business is. So I look at you guys and students as the customers.
Right.
And so that's why, I want to make sure that not only I'm at the top of my game, but treating you with great respect, all with great humility on my part. I think so many businesses get all this research and they talk about it. I've sat in rooms where we're going to strategize. We're going to create this new website for the customer, and I look around and say, "Where's the customer?" You have to have the we think we know, but we don't. I was teaching a class in the LEMBA program, and it was brilliant by this woman. She was going to take a job, and before she did, she went into the business as a customer. When I took the job with Girl Scouts, I said, "How quickly do we thank our donors?" And they said, 2 weeks. So I called my daughter in Bellingham and I said, "I want you to send in a check right now, and I want you to do an online donation and tell me when you get thanked." 2 weeks later, when she got thanked, I was able to sit down with the team and say, "Look, this isn't gotcha, but we're kidding ourselves if we think we thank donors in 24 or 48 hours. We don't. Here's the evidence.
Right.
So let's figure out how we can." When I was at Pacific Science Center, we had all this attendance research and all of that. I'd stand out by the gate and I would talk to moms as they were leaving with their kids. What did you like? What didn't you like? That feedback was priceless. And I think we don't spend enough time truly listening to customers. And that starts right here with our students, creating a better student experience.
Do you think students are well heard right now? Just not at Seattle U, but in general to the university?
What do you think?
I think there definitely is a gap between everything we've done in UGL for the projects we do.
Yeah.
You might make a project and then there's really no answer of okay, this is going to happen. There's definitely, if you want change, I feel like there's a lot of mystery to where is there money available? Do they really care? But yeah, definitely a mystery there.
For me, the reason I kind of wanted to start up this podcast was the gap between students and professors or teachers. I feel like for some reason, I don't know, I kind of, especially this year coming into college, there's something about, you finish your course and the teacher just goes on to the next course. And I don't know, there's something, I want to connect with the professors and being able to have yourself on here, kind of talk, have a conversation, getting to know your story, kind of, it fills in that gap. So to answer your question, I definitely think there is a gap between professors and students, but hopefully through this, or just kind of emphasizing that teachers want to help, they want to make sure you're succeeding in life, especially after college, or just high school students, kind of that thing. So
absolutely. And I can tell you the president and the provost really want to emphasize a quality experience for the students. So, the whole university is really trying to work on that. But, it's clearly a journey. It's not a destination we ever reach. And I think, doing something like this and really trying to open up that kind of dialogue for the students, all of you watching out there, I think it's marvelous what you guys are doing.
From both perspectives, what do you think some of the challenges are? Do you think it's kind of both at fault, or why is there a gap in that way? Coming from a professor's perspective.
I don't really have the answer on that. I think sometimes it may be professors who the professors care. Many of them are really busy.
Right.
Many of them are busy with research. But I think we all have to look for opportunities. Recently I had a student who really had the courage to open up to me about how he was doing. I felt that was a real privilege. Now I'm trying to follow up with that student. I won't let that die because that's too important to me in my life right now. And I think we just have to look for every opportunity we can to listen to the students and say, how are we doing? with the student experience, and exactly what can we do to improve on that.
Yeah. And I think in one of my classes we have optional stand-up, which just goes through Google Teams, I believe, and just what are some of your goals for this week, biggest goal that you've achieved last week, and then like you send that in, the professor always sends a response. I feel like that's huge just on the part that it's not graded. I feel like when it's graded, you might lose a little bit of like originality and you're more focused on the points, but if it's not graded, just
That's great. What's the professor?
That's
What's
a
the
Rupert,
class?
Rupert in
That's-
UGL.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's fabulous.
Like I don't know how many students do it, but I think I've been doing it the last couple of weeks and it's great.
That's great. Thanks for letting me
Yeah,
know.
definitely something I'd recommend.
Great. More ideas anytime.
Yeah, right? Student ideas.
Going back to kind of like a business standpoint, coming from a marketing professor, in this day and age, what is some of the best ways a business can market their brand or kind of the mission they stand for?
I think you have to, first of all, figure out where are my customers.
Right.
So what social media channels are they using? Is it TikTok? Is it Snapchat? Is it Instagram? Short videos? And then you have to, this gets back to truly understanding the customer. You can't put out what you think will market your brand. You have to put out what's interesting and relevant to your customers. When I teach my social media marketing class, I say, look, 80% of your content should be interesting or relevant, not self-promotion. Unless you're giving away, money and you're giving away big discount coupons every day. It has to be interesting and relevant. And I'll give you an example. When I went to Girl Scouts, on Facebook, they were promoting when the cookie sales happen and when camps happen. And I looked at the team and I said, look, the moms know that. We have to back up and figure out what do the moms need. They're helping young women with drug pressure, peer pressure, grade pressure, all of these things. I said, we have to find stories where mothers have figured out how to help their daughters, put those stories on Facebook, and then ask the moms at the end of each post, and what have you tried that has worked? That's meaningful content. And when we started to do that, we saw great engagement. All of a sudden, we're creating that community. But that community reinforces the relationship with the brand, because the more you really reap benefits from those conversations, then when we put out self-promotion, you're talking to an audience where you've got a much better relationship. So I think every brand has to figure out what kind of content would be interesting and relevant and help my audience. And when you do that and create opportunities for a two-way conversation by prompting a question, you begin to build that relationship. And as you build the relationship, you build a stronger brand relationship.
I think for the MotMot brand, I think that's something very valuable, because I feel like one of the challenges that we've kind of faced is that, like, kind of what you're saying, connecting with the customer. Although we're posting fun content and stuff like that, that connects with the students. It's fun, they're engaging. A lot of them like the MotMot Mondays, as well as some faculty. But in terms of reflecting on the brand, I think there's some kind of miscommunication there, because as a nonprofit, when we help the farmers and stuff like that, but within our videos and our MotMot Mondays, I feel like there's some kind of disconnect there, and something that we kind of are new to, right? Like we're first year students, we're getting to know the backbone of business, learning how to market, learning how to run operations on a business, all that kind of different things. So that's something like we want to focus on for sure, because a lot of the things that I've taken away with interviewing with Ephron at Boom Boona or Jody Hall at Wonderground is that the customers get a sense of a connection and an experience when they're at the shops. Like, especially with Ephron, one of the things is kind of embracing that, like, African-American community. He embraces that with all sorts of things, and I see great feedback from their customers, all that different things. And that's but as you mentioned, it's all work in progress. We're getting towards that for sure. So
I think you've got some great stories to tell. They take a little time to package it.
Right.
Why would somebody choose MotMot over the other coffee that we have here? I think that, showing some of the stories of the farmers, their families, using some great emotional music in
Right.
there might, really help reinforce and periodically tell that story. I think at some point you need to go back. We did this before. You need to go to Nicaragua.
Right.
You need to do some interviews. You need to take some pictures. We need to see the farmer, the farmer's family, the kids.
Right.
So you can come back here and package some stories that really capture the emotion, and not just put them then on social media, put them on the podcast. Do a special presentation in classes. Get the faculty together, and say, look, we want to show you. And the other stories you have are, what are you learning that you can share with other students in real life about, customs, shipping things from another country,
Right.
operations, distribution, sales challenges. And sometimes you can put it out there and say, we need your help. We want to grow MotMot. Send us your ideas. Come talk to us. Let's, create a bigger community. I look at it this way, that, you've got a few people on the MotMot team. You've got thousands of students here.
Right.
Ask them for help in, who do you know? Where could we distribute? Where could we do sales? What are some marketing ideas that you think we should use the power of the students to help you?
As much as the faculty as well.
Absolutely.
Which-
Absolutely.
Which
yes.
leads me to my next question. What kind of, you're obviously one of them on the board members, as kind of like oversees us, making sure we're everything on track. What caught your interest there to be part of the MotMot board member?
Just the fact that it would be so different. When I heard that Braden was going to start MotMot, and the reason behind it, and it's a real business, I just wanted to be a part of it. I thought, what a great opportunity for students.
Right.
Not only do you learn, but in those job interviews, you walk in and say, I've been running a real business. And by the way, I know about operations. I know about distribution. I know about customs. I know about sales. I know about marketing. But fabulous experience. So I just wanted to be a part of that.
Yeah.
Did you have the chance to teach Braden or just see everything he was doing with MotMot while he was here?
I did. And, like others, like both of you, Braden went through a couple of my classes. But yeah, I had a chance to work with him.
What about I don't know if you were on the MotMot board with Braden. How was their style of operating it versus kind of what we're doing today?
I think the style probably had more formal kind of presentations to the board. But I think that with all due respect to Braden, you guys MotMot was laid to rest during COVID. You guys brought it to life in just a few months, which is an unheard of thing. That's like you started it from scratch,
Right.
essentially.
Right.
That's powerful. Very few people can do something what you guys have achieved.
So, as some of you may not know, but Barnes came up to us and told us, you guys would be good candidates for this business. to ask the question, what kind of characteristics or kind of values correlate to being a good leader or being kind of running a business?
I'm chuckling here because I had a conversation with some people from another club today, and I was telling them a story about looking at you guys, and I said, what I look for is not necessarily somebody has the experience, but who's that student in class that's raising their hand, that's engaging, that you can see the initiative, the preparation. And I've been very fortunate, and I'll translate this to business. but seeing you guys and recognizing you guys have the power to make something happen. Ben Jones Rice, who runs SUAMA,
Shout out Ben
there
Jones
he was
Rice.
in the there he was in the first BUAD class, a freshman. He's raising his hand, and I'm looking for somebody to run SUAMA. He's an econ major. Doesn't matter that he's not a marketing major.
Right. Yeah.
He's demonstrating initiative, and I volunteered him to become president of the club. And so I've actually done that in business when I've hired people. So many people go to, okay, this is the position, this is the bucket where we have the experience. And I always say, look at the transferable skills. Who has the transferable skills that could do that job? And I've been really lucky in business where I've hired people not out of the traditional bucket, but with transferable skills, had the initiative. I knew they could learn the parts of the job. They didn't have to have the experience, and they've gone on to great success. So one piece of advice as you go through life, don't always look in the standard bucket where everybody's looking. Sometimes there's a great star in one of those other buckets.
What do you think the key is to kind of showing off those skills in an interview? Where, like, when you gave the example of a student in a class, but if you're in an interview, you might not really have a perfect opportunity to, like, showcase,
Right.
Here's my initiative.
Talk. I say go to interviews, as many as you can, because every single one, even if you don't 1,000% want that job, interview, because you want to become a professional interviewer to be able to tell your story. So every time, it's like an athlete. Every time you do an interview, it's practice. So do as many as you can. Informational interviews, internship interviews, job interviews. And when you finish, just figure out, what did I do well? What did I could do better? And the more you do, the more effective you'll become. And I think too many people just wait for, okay, it's time to interview for a job. Now start interviewing. Interview now, early and often.
Is that a message to all, like, freshman students?
All students.
All students.
All students, all levels. I've seen it with first-year students. I've seen it with seniors. How many interviews have you had? Well, I've done about 4. Wait a minute, you're a senior.
Yeah.
You should be able to tell your story well now. Interview early and often.
Yeah. I think that's something we've kind of are practicing at the moment. Obviously not with, like, kind of internships and interviews, but, like, kind of this setup. We had a dean's advisory meeting, kind of presenting ourselves, how we got to SU.
That's great.
What MotMot is. So we're getting in there. We're learning.
It's definitely one of those things where, like, first one you do, like, super scary. You're like, oh my gosh, like, you kind of, like, lose yourself mid-interview. Same goes with public speaking, I think.
Yeah.
It's professionals lose themselves, every once in a while. So, I think that's fabulous. And every time you do the presentations, you learn, you become better. I'm still learning every single day how to express myself and do it right. If I'm doing a presentation, how to do it right. If it's a one-on-one, how can I become more effective? So I think it's, do it.
Yeah.
Would you consider yourself always kind of an extrovert, pretty good at public speaking, or was there, like, a time where you really worked on it?
Yeah. One of my Gallup strengths is woo. So, you give me, a room with 5 people, I'm okay. Give me a room with 1,000 people I don't know. It's like I'm on the Discovery Tour. I'm having a great time. And it's not about working the room, it's about, creating some conversations and some connections. I remember early on I was at an event hosted by the Jesuits for new faculty, and I started a conversation with one of the Jesuits, and he's all of a sudden telling me about, every summer he goes to Montana, he goes to these long hikes and these fishing trips, and he's telling me this story, and I was like totally fascinated. And 15 minutes into it, he said, "You're a good listener." I said, "You're a good storyteller." But there was a connection because I was genuinely listening to him. And I think, that's the other part of it. We need to be able to tell our story, do our presentations, but be amazing listeners, because I think that's the other part of the connection. We can all tell if somebody's just giving nods, right, and not fully listening.
As being a good listener, what makes a good listener?
The hardest thing for me is turn down that background conversation in my mind. You know, it's always running. It's like, I'm busy. I got to do something. I may not have time for this. What's the question I'm going to ask? Oh, that was a good point. Oh, crap, I didn't hear what he or she just said. Turn down the background conversation. I have to fight that. I always have. You know, a long time ago, I was genuinely diagnosed as ADHD. So I have learned, turn down the conversation, focus and listen.
Yeah, that's a great point right there.
One of the things we really want to focus on in the next couple of years is just the succession plan of MotMot Coffee. You know, we're only first years, but, you know, if we don't grow in the next 4, you know, there's going to be no one to take it over.
Right.
What are some things we could do either next year or the following years to get other students involved?
I think do presentations in classes about why students would want to join MotMot and the benefits, and tell your personal story about what you've learned in the process and the benefits to you. You're more than welcome to come in my classes. I'm sure Brian and other professors, especially the marketing professors, the operations professors, would welcome that opportunity. Go in and really try to help the students understand, hey, this isn't just like a club. You will learn things and experience things that you won't ever experience inside the classroom. So I think that, and I think the best method is student to student. You know, faculty members can pitch it, but when you get there face to face with other students and they see your face and they hear your story, that's what you want to do.
Yeah, that's good.
Do you think that voice between students and students is valuable, or do you think it's more of a voice if a faculty member came up to them and then told them like their kind of views on it?
It's a combination, but I think nothing's more powerful than student to student.
Okay.
When you tell that story to other students, and you convey that, that's priceless.
Yeah, I feel like with a professor, at least coming from a student, they might tell me something and I'm like, well, you know, that's his job.
Right.
You know, that's why he's telling me that. But in some cases where when we're doing our UGL speeches, there'll be a TA in the Toastmasters Club who's an upperclassman, and he might approach you after and be like, you did these 4 things amazing, these 2 need work, and then I think you're doing really good. I'm going to send you this resume link. I want you to apply for this. Because like someone is taking their time to reach out to me, I'm going to be like that much more kind of motivated to look into it, have a nice response.
Absolutely. That's a great experience. Fabulous.
And there's definitely some out there, like, you know, for us specifically, we've had, you know, Simon or VP, Ting, like these are seniors or a grade above us, and they're taking us under our wing kind of thing, letting us know some mistakes not to do or kind of things like that. So to kind of go off his point, I think it's very valuable when a student comes up to you and letting you know, hey, I'm also a student. Let me give you my advice. Let me give you what I've experienced. Let me give you those mistakes I did so you don't do them as well. So
right.
Yeah. So
definitely just talk to the upperclassmen. Like, don't be scared.
Yeah.
They're who you're gonna be in 3 years.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Much like
you know, in some ways, they don't have all the answers, and they're apprehensive about where they're headed, and they remember being in your position.
Right. Yeah. We want to do a little segment here.
Okay.
Kind of, you're a marketing professor, so we're going to ask you a couple marketing questions. Is that all right?
Is this going to rely on my memory?
Maybe we'll see.
Okay.
All right.
I'll
Ready?
probably get an F on the test. But go ahead.
No. All right. First question. What year was Facebook founded? A, 2004, B, 2007, C, 2005.
7?
Those
are close numbers.
Those are very close.
Wrong. It's 2004.
Okay, so I'm not doing good so far.
It's okay.
I'm going to get failed.
Let's get
failing grade.
All right, number 2. What is the average salary of a chief marketing officer in the U.S.? Option 1, $120,000. Option 2, 134,000. Option 3, 190,000.
These are all too close. I'd say the middle one,
It's gonna be 190.
190. Okay.
Off 0 for 2.
You know, one of the hottest jobs right now is a
What's it?
prompt engineer.
Prompt engineer.
Prompt engineer. You know, when you go on ChatGPT
Oh.
or you go on what was Bard and is now Gemini, and you put in the box the information, a prompt engineer is getting paid a lot of money, even right out of school, is the person who might work with all divisions, and they come to you saying, I need this information, and you're so good at what you put in to get out the right information. I probably go on, not ChatGPT, I probably go on Bard every day. And I do it every day because not only am I looking for some good information, but I'm becoming more effective as a prompt person.
Yeah.
I think that is such an important skill, no matter what your major is to learn how to become really effective at putting the right information. I now put that into my BComp class. We spend about an hour on how to write great prompts because I know everybody's using ChatGPT or Bard and some of the others. I want you to become really good at it so you know how to get the information you want. But at prompt engineer, great job. I think pay starts well over 100,000 after graduation.
And what type
How's
of,
that for trivia?
I think we learned something there.
Right.
Should we go to question 3?
Yeah, question 3. What is the second
Question time's over. No, go ahead.
what is the second number 2 search engine in the world? Number 1.
Oh, that's
Bing.
easy. YouTube.
Oh,
He's got it.
he's got it.
Doesn't even need the answers.
I finally got one right.
Let's go.
It's good.
1 out of 3.
All right, so we have a marketing question here.
Okay.
What is the primary goal of marketing? Option 1, maximizing profits. Option 2, reducing costs. Option C, building brand awareness. And option D, customer satisfaction.
I would say customer satisfaction.
That is correct.
And that's something that you were explaining earlier as well. So,
Right.
Yeah. All right. Last question.
That's 2 out of 4.
2 out of 4.
Yeah.
I think
Bad
this
average.
I think this next one you'll get. So,
Okay.
which of the following is not part of the marketing mix, or AKA 4 Ps?
Yeah.
1, product. 2, price. 3, promotion. 4, profit.
Profit.
Yep.
There we go.
But let me add 2 more Ps that I teach in my marketing class. I say there are really 6 Ps now. I add publishing and purpose. I say that every business needs to be in the publishing business. Your website, again, needs to be information that is relevant and interesting, unless it's a transaction website like Amazon or eBay or something like that. And purpose. People want to know, what are you doing with the money? What's the purpose? Why does your business exist? It's a little bit of the Simon Sinek. What's your why? And I think today, especially, with climate change, with sustainability, with all these other issues, people want to know what are you doing with your business for us, as opposed to just taking the profits out and putting it in stockholders' pockets. So I think there's purpose in publishing.
And those last 2 Ps should be something pretty much every business should be updating every 2-3 weeks, if that.
Constant.
Yeah.
It's constantly evolving. And you do it in conjunction with your customers. And you also can't, how are we on time? We okay? Good. And we also have to understand that I'm losing my train of thought. I completely forgot what I was going to say.
Last 2 Ps, updating every week, every other week.
I think that I think it's so important, again, to keep understanding what your customer wants. I just remembered what I was going to say. One of the things that we're seeing in marketing, a lot of businesses are claiming to have a commitment to sustainability and climate change.
Right.
We'll be net zero by 2050. The Earth may not be here by 2050.
Yeah.
I heard a good video statement where somebody said, that's like telling your doctor, I'll quit smoking by 2050. Businesses have to stop making false claims. They may think they're going to get there by 2050, but there are a whole lot of years where a whole lot of damage is going to be done before then. And so I think businesses have to be honest. If your purpose is really to make a difference in sustainability and climate change and net zero, don't kick the can down 25 years. Show us what you're doing now, step by step.
As far as like the publication part of it, would that be something that we see with companies now offering like a newsletter they're doing every week?
I think figuring out what's the right platform, the right channel to share what you're doing, but again, be totally honest about what you're doing. Patagonia several years ago said, we're making these jackets, and these jackets this is Patagonia,
Right.
The environmental clothing maker. They said, we're going to show you what's good in your jackets, what isn't good, the chemicals that are going in, and what we're trying to do about it. That was a big risk. But that's honesty. That's the kind of honesty I think we need from businesses, because all of a sudden you have more respect for a company that tells you, here's the good, here's the bad. We're not making false claims. Here's what we're working on.
Yeah. And I think that's something very valuable within not only business but as a human being. Like, I think there's something about being honest with another person. It kind of builds that connection, although sometimes you don't want to hear the truth, or sometimes you don't want to hear the honesty. But at the end of the day, it adds like that sentimental value where, like, look, I, I, I'm being honest with you. I love you with care for what reason. Like, I'm going to be honest with you. So,
Right.
yeah.
And I think that, when we do it in the right way and somebody realizes, look, I love you.
Right.
Not in a romantic way, but I love you because I care about you.
Right.
And it's hard for me. It's always been hard I had a horrible childhood. So getting used to hearing criticism has never been easy for me. But I really respect it when I get it, because I understand that if I'm to grow, I have to appreciate it and I have to listen to it.
Okay.
What's one lesson for kind of delivering constructive criticism and getting points across without like in the most effective way?
I think it comes down to you have to come in with a mindset that you genuinely care about the person. Do it in private. Talk about the behavior, not anything else, and do it in a timely fashion. We've all been in personal relationships where somebody says, "That's it, I've had it." Could you have told me somewhere along the line? Usually there's a trigger factor or something. And I think in business, sometimes it happens too. Sometimes people in business are afraid to tell somebody. They don't want to hurt the relationship. They think it'll damage the relationship. If you do it in the right way with a caring heart, and you say, look, I care about you. I care about your success. And if you believe that person, then it becomes a meaningful conversation. Tough.
That's
A lot of people avoid giving feedback.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely a skill.
Yeah. And it's much like doing presentations. The more we do it, the better we become at it.
Is that a lesson in BCom?
It
Like
is.
giving advice.
Yeah, we spend time doing constructive criticism, and then everybody in my class, you have to do it in front of the class. You're criticizing me. Now it's a fun day because you're all criticizing the professor.
Right.
But they come in with real work scenarios because I just want them to feel that voice when they're giving the criticism.
I'm excited. I'm taking your BCom next quarter, so you're going to hear some criticism from me for sure.
I look forward to it.
You talk about some tough questions. I think this is a pretty tough one. What's your biggest regret in life?
Oh, wow. My biggest regret. My biggest regret, I think, was early in my career working so hard, so many hours. In my early 20s, I had a son. I'd leave at 5 in the morning. I'd come back at 9 at night. So I was kind of like a weekend father.
Right.
I didn't even go to many of the school events. I was so committed to my career. 10 years later, flash forward, I had 2 daughters. I did it completely differently. I said, no, I'm going to work on, what's the worst they're going to do? They're going to fire me. I'm going to make sure that I'm there for those family events and that sort of thing. And it made a completely different relationship. I think that early in your life, stay balanced with, what you need in your personal or family life or relationships and work. And if that working situation doesn't allow for it, then go somewhere else where it does. Life is short, and we can never go back and get those memories. And those memories and those stories and those events are what build our relationships. Don't put work before those. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good.
I want to reflect on that. Do you, or better yet, so say someone's in that journey of where like they're working super hard, they're dedicated, they want to make money or they want to provide for their kids, but like what you're saying, maybe take a step back and kind of have that relationship with your kids or family members. What's a bit of advice to kind of take that step back? Is it calling off less hours, or what's?
I think it's always going to be situational, and certainly there are going to be times where, you may have a project and you've got to work for the next 4 weeks like crazy.
Right.
But I think just stay focused on that relationship with somebody you love. As kids come along, whatever you do, they will replicate. If you work like crazy and you give them toys and TVs and games and trips, but you're not there for, their elementary school music concert or the first dance recital or the first violin performance, that they may not tell you, but it breaks their heart a little. You need to be there. And when you look back, the jobs will all be gone. Nobody will say, you won't even remember some of the days that you worked like crazy, but you will remember in your heart, damn, I really wish I was there for her performance. I look at a picture and now there's some video, but I really wish I was there. Those are the meaningful things. And they will replicate those. When you're there, they will follow your examples. And the same thing when you go home. We need to go home and we need to cherish the people we have relationships with, whether it's a friend or a partner or a spouse, and not go home and spend 2 hours talking about how crappy our workday was. If we go home and spend 2 hours talking about, and I did this early in my career, talking about how crappy our workday is, that's not building a relationship. You want to spend time with your loved ones. How was your day? What can I do to help you? What can we do together? It's always a warning sign if you're going home and you're lamenting, I just had a crappy day, and every day is like that. Crappy day conversations are like, alert, alert, alert. Go to another job.
Yeah. For my personal life, I can kind of reflect that because my dad, he works tremendous amounts of hours. He owns his own business, so like, and then I'm also doing my own thing. But one of the big takeaways is instead of, I took away is that now I know how to work hard and be able to provide for myself because he's providing for our family, and I kind of want to translate that with my life.
Mm-hmm.
But with that being said, since I'm not seeing as much or I'm doing my own thing, I don't get to connect with him, right? And one of the things that I'm trying nowadays is being able to talk to him. We have some similar like hobbies or similar ideas and mindset, so maybe connect there. So that's some of the things that I'm trying right now. It's a little difficult because it took up 19 of my years to figure that out. But at the end of the day, like you were mentioning, it's something that I will hold on for the rest of my life, being able to connect with my dad for once, being able to talk to him as much as my mom as well. But back to what I was saying, I think not seeing my dad or seeing him work really hard, that translated to me as well. Like I'm getting that aspect of working hard, being dedicated to something, going at it 110%. So I think there's
And
some
that's
pros and
good.
cons.
That's good. But, I think what you also learned is, there's that other piece that you wish you had that you're now
Right.
trying to claim and be a part of.
Right.
What's great is you're doing it early on. I've got a son who I'll see this summer, who, for many years while I was working, I missed a lot of that, and I missed a lot of his life. I'm trying to regain it now. And it's those things you want to try to do along the way. And it's a tough balance.
Right.
Yeah, you have to work hard. You do want to, move up in your career, but hang on to those personal moments because they can make a world of difference with your kids. And, if you have kids, you're teaching them how to be a good father, how to have the right conversations. But you're also teaching them the work ethic
Right.
about, and explaining to them, when you've got to work a lot of hours, sit them down and explain what's going on so they understand, why you're doing it.
Yeah, definitely a lot that can get in the way. And
Yeah.
probably easier.
It's
said
a
than
journey, and we're all learning every single day.
Right. It's a motto my dad says as well. Is no matter how old you are, you still want to learn every day, or you're gonna learn every day.
Right. And I'll put in one more pitch for the other part of families, okay? This came up in my BCom class this quarter. I said, so you're going to be supervising people who are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. What do you think is old? And somebody said 30. I said, you got to go in with a completely different mindset. You've got to learn how these people communicate, what's important to them, because you're walking in and they're going to say, what do you know? You just graduated. And you can't look at them saying, well, what do you know? You're old. Well, they may have 30 years in the industry. That's a lot of knowledge that you want to be a sponge to. And this also relates then back to your parents and your grandparents. What are the stories and questions and learnings that you can ask them? Don't let your grandparents, just be seen at Christmas or Easter or vacations. Ask them about life experiences. What did they learn? What are their regrets? What would they have done differently? There's this huge information source out there. And I can tell you grandparents love calls from grandkids.
Yeah, definitely something I should do more.
Put it on your Outlook calendar if you
Yeah.
have to.
Right.
All right. I think this is a good time to wrap it up, but we want to end off on a good note. So, what's some of your recommendations to students or anyone out there kind of seeking for advice?
Do something like this. Do a podcast. Get engaged. Don't just go through school, going to classes. Join a club. In my BCom class that I'm wrapping up, 50% of the students are not in a club. I said, you are missing so much. You're missing networking. You're missing fun. You're missing learning. Engage, engage, engage.
Awesome. That's the key. Yeah. Thank you so much, Professor Barnes.
My pleasure to be here.
It's been a pleasure.
Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And as always,
Oh, yeah. As always, happy
Happy
MotMot
MotMot
Monday.
I love it.
All right.
sweet.
So, that's it.
That
I
was
go
good.
okay?
Oh yeah.